Hello, everyone. So, I've touched on this topic a number of times, but I wanted to make a video about it today, and it may be obvious, but I'm not even scripting this video. Excuse my phone going off. I've seen yet another post today, and bait, maybe, maybe not. But the post said that, or it inferred that if you are anxious or depressed, you're just an atheist. Because you clearly don't trust in God. And there are innumerable things wrong with that statement. And if it was an isolated post, I would just move on. But I've seen this kind of thinking go around that if you're anxious or you're depressed, you're either lacking faith or you're demonically possessed or something like that. And I want to talk about why that is not the case. So, for perspective, myself and my family have dealt with a number of mental, emotional disabilities. And I myself have had depression since I was 8 years old, caused by slow ongoing trauma with my deathly ill father. And also, I have had anxiety and panic disorder since I was 11 or 12 because of a medicine that I went on that just flipped a switch in my brain, and I've had panic attacks since then. So what does that mean for my faith? I have felt like God wasn't there. I felt like I'm failing God because we're told, just trust in God. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to be worried about. But it is said that God does not give us a spirit of fear. However, we are in this mortal body. And as Paul said, things will get better when we are moved on to our next life. However, we still have a duty in this life. He said, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." And later on in that passage, he says, "Though it may be better when I unite with Christ, I still have a duty here." And that's the case for all of us. If you're still here, if you're still breathing, God still has something for you to do. On the topic of anxiety, Matthew 26:38, as the King James Version says it, "Then he saith unto them, My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here, and watch with me." Jesus was so anxious that his sweat became like blood, and I'm sure you've heard this many times. So what's the difference when Jesus gets anxious and we get anxious? Sometimes we give in to the anxiety. If Jesus had said, my soul is heavy, even unto death. Father, I cannot do this. Take this from me. That would have been giving in to the anxiety. And before you start fearing, I give in to the anxiety sometimes. Is that sinful? Just give me a moment. Regarding depression, it's not a sin to be sad. John 11:35, shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept at the funeral of, or the gravesite of Lazarus. But the word that is used when Jesus wept for Lazarus is, I'm going to butcher this Greek pronunciation, edekryson. However, there's another Greek word that is used when Jesus weeps over Jerusalem in Luke 19:41, and that is ekphopson. Now, throughout the New Testament, this is used 3 times, I believe, according to the verse source that I have pulled up. And it's used for bitterly weeping and wailing and mourning. Jesus was sad. He knew what was coming to Jerusalem, and he wanted to save them, but they were not willing. If you've ever had someone who's on a destructive path, and they just will not listen, and you love them so much, and you want them to get out of this path, but they just won't. You know that feeling. And that's what Jesus felt. So is that a problem when we feel these things? No. Is it a problem when we give in to them? It can be. However, we are not perfect. And sometimes my anxiety tells me I need to stay home, when realistically I could have gone to go do whatever's needed. But over time, the more you fight it, the better you get. And I don't want you to worry because you give in too much or anything like that, because your tears are prayers. It says in Romans 8:26 and 27, likewise the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groaning too deep for words. And he who searches the hearts knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the willing of God. God knows what we need. And your times that it's just too much and you just need to sit and cry is okay. That will not make you any less saved, because you still know who Jesus is and what he did. You know that Jesus is what the scriptures say and did what the scriptures say he did. And even if you don't feel that right now, even if you don't feel like you're saved because you're so anxious or you're so depressed or you have schizophrenia and you're seeing things, that will not affect your salvation, because your salvation is not dependent on how you feel. Thank God it's not dependent on how we feel. And some people will say it's demonic oppression. I want you to look at Colossians 2:15. The NIV says, "And having disarmed the powers and authorities, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross." The rulers of this world have been disarmed. You are under the blood of Christ. They cannot touch you. They might be able to whisper something to you, but they cannot take away your salvation. And they cannot take away your wholeness in Christ. You are holy in Christ, because that's the extent of what he did on the cross. And how you feel cannot take that away. And, if that's not good news, then what is? I've seen takes like this not only from doofuses online, but from people in real life too. They'll say, "Oh, that's not depression. You need demons cast out of you." And that's not at all true. There was one passage, I forgot to look it up beforehand, where the disciples asked Jesus, "Who sinned that this man should be born?" I think he was either lame or blind. And Jesus said, "This is not the fault of anyone, but it was from God, that his glory may be shown." And as difficult and life-changing in the worst way as anxiety and panic disorder, depression, just any kind of mental or even physical illness can be, God can use it for his glory and for his kingdom. I am a living testimony of how God can use anxiety to bring him glory, because all that I do, the compassion, I don't know that the compassion would be there, or would at least be as strong as it is for God's people, if I didn't have this anxiety. Because I see what I've been through, the last 15 years, the last 25 years. And I feel for those who have gone through similar things. And I want you to know that God has not forgotten you. We may feel like he has, but these feelings are wrong. And these feelings are temporary. And so, if you start encountering people like this, that say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you're just demon possessed," or if they say, "You just don't have enough faith." For the latter, look at Paul. We don't know what his thorn in his side was, if it was a person, if it was an ailment. But what did God tell him? "My grace is sufficient for you." And to those that say you're demon possessed, bring up Colossians 2:15. It's concerning when people say that, because they don't know the extent of what Christ did. They don't realize it. And concerningly, my family's been told that by a pastor before. And in situations like that, I have a toss-up in my head. Would I run? Or would I run away, or would I run forward and tell these people, you are not demon possessed because you're depressed. You're not demon possessed because you're schizophrenic. We live in a fallen world where we have ailments. Okay, would you tell someone who is diabetic to stop taking their insulin and just get their demons exorcised? No, that's ridiculous. And that kind of stuff happens. You know, you see that kind of thing. It's sadly not only in mega churches, but you know, some of the churches down the street might say something like that. And if that kind of thing happens, run. Biblically correct them if you feel led to, and if the words are given to you. But just know that you are in Christ. And your feelings and your ailments do not affect that. I can promise you that. Because all of the things that are said about salvation and how you can be saved, it's not about what you do. It's not about what you can do for God. It's not about what you feel or what you do for other people. It's about what God did for you. And all that it takes is you just believe. So this talk has been a little bit scattered, but that's what happens when I don't script things. I hope this message has brought someone peace, because it's something that I've fought with. You know, I questioned, am I saved because I'm having, you know, up to 5 or 6 panic attacks a day at one point? Am I saved because I feel depressed? I don't feel God. Sometimes we don't feel God. But speak life over yourself, because the plant that you water, the creature that you feed, the words that you say, whatever metaphor you want to use, that's what's going to grow. And if you want to help escape it, that's one thing that you can do. Speak life over yourself. If it's depression, just tell yourself, I am saved regardless of how I feel. I am in Christ regardless of how I feel. And if it's anxiety, do the same. And reach out to other people who can help. So I just want to bring some peace to someone with my scattered thoughts and some Bible verses. And I just hope you know how loved you are by God, by me, and by the community around us.